Good morning, guys. We're going to be talking about our last section here concerning matrices, and we've saved the best for last. We're talking about solving matrix equations. So I want to, of course, try to bring back some previous knowledge, and I think that will help us as well to help to know how to do this. I will say this: your matrix calculator from Desmos is going to be your best friend, but you do have to know how to set these up appropriately. If you set them up the wrong way, and I'm actually going to show you this, if you set it up the wrong way, it will give you an answer, but it'll be the wrong answer, okay? So let's just think about this, I guess, to start. If you had 2 plus 6x equals 20, that was something that you were attempting to solve. Now, you're going to think, well, Mr. Hamilton, Lord, I've been doing that forever. I know exactly what to do, but I want to kind of walk through the steps that you have to do. Think about when you're solving equations, you have to isolate this x and get it by itself, okay? So I'm not even really worried about this term to start with. I'm really trying to get this 2 out of my way because this is over here on this side and I don't need it over here, okay? So the first thing we would do is we would subtract 2 from both sides. And that's very, very important. I want you to understand what you're really doing there, okay? Now, the other thing is this is going to leave me 6x, and I'm going to have 18 on this side. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by 6. Now, why would I divide by 6 on both sides? Think about that for just a second. Well, the reason I'm dividing by 6 on both sides is because I'm actually doing inverse operations. Okay, now think about it. Yesterday we did inverses. So now we're actually going to use that a little bit because here what we've done with the negative 2, the subtracting the 2 from both sides, by dividing the 6, these are inverse operations. The reason we divided and didn't, for example, subtract or add or multiply was because I was already multiplying the 6 to the x. So I had to do the inverse of multiplication, which is division. So when I do that, of course, I'm going to get x equals 3. It's not really important, the answer. I wanted you to see that you have to do inverse operations in order to undo this 6 times x, okay, and the 2 that was over here as well. So inverse operations are really important. So then we have this. We have solve the matrix equation ax equals b for x. And so you notice right here is the kind of equation that they're giving you. You've got a matrix here that is being multiplied times x, and then it's got to equal b. So again, let's just go ahead and say that this is a and this is b. So really what I have is just like this little format that's up here. I've got the matrix A multiplied times x, and it's equaling b. Now here is the critical part of this whole thing, and this note that you've got right here on your paper. It says, unlike solving regular equations, matrices cannot be divided. So that's the reason we're not talking about division of matrices. We've talked about addition, subtraction, multiplication, even determinants and inverses, but we've never talked about division. That's because you cannot divide matrices. So it says instead of dividing, multiply each side of the matrix equation by the inverse of A to get x by itself. So what you're doing is what we really did up here. You're going to have to do inverse operations. In other words, you can't just divide A. You can't divide matrix A out from both sides, but you can do the inverse of A, okay? So here's the way this kind of works out. I'm going to move it down here. We're actually not going to even do this problem. We're going to do one of these down here. But this is kind of the way this works out. So I have AX equals B. Well, to get x by itself, I've got to do the inverse of A, okay? So I've got to do the inverse of A. Now, inverse always has that -1, right? You remember when we did inverses yesterday, we had the little -1 because that does symbolize an inverse. Well, if I do that to one side, remember what we did over here, we divided by 6. I had to divide by 6 on the other side. Well, I have to do it over here on this side as well. I have to take the inverse of A on this side. So what ends up happening here is my A's are going to cancel out on this side, okay? And I'm going to be left with just x equals. Now here is the really critical part. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, I have no idea why there is a difference, but there is a difference in the way that you write this, okay? So x equals, what you have to start with is the inverse of A times B. Okay? Now, it is not, I'm going to write this in big, bold letters, it is not X equals B times the inverse of A. And you're telling me that makes no difference. Those are commutative property of multiplication, and I understand all of that, okay? But I'm telling you right now, if you do this, you are going to get a wrong answer. It's not going to be correct, okay? This is the format that you really want to be able to have and to end up with on your problems, okay? I'm going to show you one example of how to do this, okay? So let's look at number 1, and it says solve the matrix equations for X. And you notice it's exactly the same as the example that we had up there as far as the way it's laid out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and label this as A. We're just going to call this matrix A. We're going to call this matrix B. And so you notice what we really have is we have matrix A times X, and it equals matrix B. Okay? So we're going to end up with this same exact format, okay, of the way to get our answer. So what we really need to have is X equals the inverse of A times B. Now I'm gonna skip over to the Desmos matrix calculator, and I'm going to put these two matrices in and show you exactly how to do this. I'm also going to show you that if you put it in a different order, you're going to get a different answer. Okay, so let's skip over real quick and look at that. Again, desmos.com/matrix. You know you're in the right calculator when you have this little new matrix button. So we're going to click new matrix, and it's going to give me matrix A. The matrix A that we had was a 2 by 2, so I can just leave it the way it is. And I'm going to go ahead and type in matrix A right here. Again, once I'm done, I know I need to also do matrix B. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit new matrix, and it'll go ahead and put save A for me in there, and go ahead and let me put in B. So I'm going to go ahead and put in B, which is 22, -8, 18, and -3. Okay, and I'm going to save that one in there. So you notice I've got both matrix A and matrix B in there. So I'm going to go back real quick. So this is our original problem that we have. And remember, I'm trying to solve for X. I'm trying to figure out what X is. In order to do that, I have to do the inverse of A times B. Okay, so this is the way I need to put it in to the calculator. So watch what happens. We're going to go back to the calculator. We've already got everything saved in. I'm going to go ahead and put A, and notice it just put in matrix A for me. If I hit inverse, it's going to go ahead and do the inverse of that, but I'm not quite done yet, right? I also need to do matrix B, and you don't have to push multiplication or any of that. You just put in matrix B just like that, and notice it gives me an answer, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and hit return on this, and I want to show you that if I do it the other way around, in other words, if I put matrix B first, and then I put in matrix A and inverse, notice it gives me an answer. But can I tell you right now that this answer right here is wrong? It is not correct, okay? This answer right here is the correct answer. So you have to make sure when you put these in to the matrix calculator that you put it in the right way. And guess what? If we were using the Inspire, it still works the same way. It's just a principle or a law. And matter of fact, I'll show you that on one of the notes here in just a second. So our answer would be this answer right here. Okay, so first row would be 1 and 2. Second row would be 6 and -11. So that would be our answer that we would have on our sheet right here. This would be the correct answer. Okay, make sure that you put your equations in that way. I cannot stress that enough. Okay, I promise I'll show you on this note. So right here it says, multiply each side by a to the -1 on the left. Multiplying must be done in the same order on both sides of the matrix equation. So it is very specific to tell you, hey, you need to make sure you do it this way and not that way. Okay? Last but certainly not least, I'm going to leave this to you, but I just want to show you something. Look at number 8. Okay, you're going to finish out the rest of these. But number 8 specifically, I want you to look at what you've really got here. Okay? You've got matrix A being multiplied times X plus matrix B equals matrix C, and they're asking you for X, okay? This is a multi-step, which shouldn't really be that hard for us, but I just want to kind of lay it out just a little bit for you. So really what you have is AX plus B equals C. Now, you should really understand now why we did that example just a few minutes ago. Our example a few minutes ago was something like this. It was something like 6x plus 2 equals 20. So I ask you this, and then I'm going to kind of leave you because I don't want to do it for you. But what part of this did we have to get rid of first? Right? We left this term alone, and we got rid of this first by subtracting the 2 from both sides, right? So your first step for this one is that you're going to have to get rid of this B. Now remember, you can add, subtract, or multiply matrices. So one of the first things you're going to do, I'm just going to give you this hint. Those of you that get this wrong, it's probably because you didn't pay attention to this hint. I'm going to have to subtract matrix B from both sides. So my first real step in this number 8 right here is I'll have matrix A times X on this side, but I'm going to have to come up with matrix C minus B on this side before I ever go any further, okay? So I'm going to leave that one to you. You can finish that out, but I just wanted to kind of give you that basic hint on how to start number 8 at least. All right, 2 through 6 are going to be just like number 1. Number 7 is a little bit of a challenge. It's okay. We can figure this out, okay? Do your best. And of course, again, I want to re-emphasize, this is the way you want to set these matrix equations up. Make sure that you always have the inverse on the left-hand side in order that you can get the correct answer. All right, hopefully this has been helpful. Again, this is the last section of the chapter, which means we're going to be reviewing and working on a test, which I know you guys are going to do really well on. Thanks.